Anything from the state before we bring the jury in?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
Anything from the defense?
No, sir, just thank you for that, Brad.
That's fine. Let's go ahead and bring the jury in. You have your own notepads, no one else's. We're ready to resume the trial. State can call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Dr. Taurean Hodges.
Raise your right hand and then place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence about to give the court in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I solemnly swear.
Thank you. Could you just state your name and then spell your last name for the court?
My name is Taurean Hodges, Taurean, last name Hodges, Hodges.
Good afternoon, Dr. Hodges. Where do you work?
My office is located 201 Chartwell Court, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina 29588.
And what is your business called?
Inlet Premier Implant and Cosmetic Dentistry.
What's the nature of your business?
I'm a dentist.
Does your practice maintain dental records for its patients?
Yes, ma'am.
Are those records kept in the ordinary course of business?
Yes, ma'am.
And as the owner of that business, are you a custodian of those records?
Yes, ma'am.
Was the victim in this case, Gregory Rice, a patient of Premier Implants?
Yes, ma'am.
Patient, sorry. Directing your attention to early November 2020, were you asked to provide Greg Rice's dental records to law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you or someone in your office provide those records to law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Without objection.
Your Honor, I'm approaching with what's been marked as State's Exhibit 13. Will you take a look at that, please? Are those the records you provided for Gregory Rice to law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, this time the state would like to introduce Exhibit 13 into evidence.
Objection.
Without objection, Your Honor.
State's Exhibit 13 admitted into evidence without objection.
Thank you, Dr. Hodges. We have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination.
No, sir, Your Honor.
All right, you may sit down.
And he may be released, Your Honor.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Please release it from Mr.
Here you go, thank you. State can call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Sergeant Ken Marcus.
Please raise your right hand and place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give the court in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Get you to state your name and then spell your last name for the court.
My name's Ken Marcus, and my last name is Marcus.
No, Your Honor. Thank you. Sergeant Marcus, where do you work?
I work with the Horry County Police Department.
How long have you been there?
18 years now.
What is your current assignment?
My current assignment is working with our criminal intelligence unit. I'm an analyst, the supervising analyst for that unit.
Do you have any other assignments?
I'm also a task force officer with the United States Secret Service's Cyber Fraud Task Force.
How long have you been a supervisor of the criminal intelligence unit?
Only a year now.
What does the criminal intelligence unit do?
So our unit will assist other investigators in corroborating information that they have learned during an investigation or help generate new leads through analyzing digital records, social media records, cell phone records, things along those lines, or digital evidence recovered from devices like cell phones, DVRs, computers, vehicles, anything that controls an electronic component.
You said you've been the supervisor for just about a year. How long has the unit been in existence?
The unit's only been in existence for a year.
So you've been the only supervisor so far.
So far, yes.
Prior to the unit being established, did you do the same type of work, just not in a specialized unit?
Yes. So I've analyzed social media records, geolocation data, cell records since 2019, and I've done digital forensic works, actually pulling information from devices and examining it since 2021.
So what type of training and experience have you had in the field of digital forensics and analysis?
So I have gone through approximately 126 hours as far as analyzing cellular records, social media records through various different companies, and I've also attended about 80 hours worth of digital forensic courses. 120 hours of digital forensic courses for various different devices, both from private companies and the United States Secret Service.
Let me get into a couple of specific kind of topics. Do cell phone companies keep records of which phones use which towers?
Yes.
And I guess I should start with, do cell phones use towers to connect to the cellular network?
Yes. So a mobile phone is nothing more than a fancy radio. You go to send a text message, make a phone call, browse Facebook, use data, and it sends a signal from the phone to a tower that is operated by your provider, AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, whomever it is. The provider will route the information where it needs to go. For instance, if you make a phone call to another person inside the courtroom, it'll go from your phone to the tower to the provider to the next provider, and then to the person that you're looking for.
And you said that cell phone companies do keep track of which towers different cell phones use. Why do they do that?
For billing purposes, so they can bill you appropriately for the amount of use that you use, and for engineering data so that they can ensure their network is working correctly and is covering areas that their customers are in.
Will cell phone companies provide that information to law enforcement if presented with a search warrant or other court order?
Yes.
What about information about specific users? Do cell phone companies maintain records related to each specific phone number?
They will keep subscriber information for the person who's renting the number or that service from their towers.
Do you regularly analyze cellular phone records and extractions in the course of your duties?
I do.
And approximately how many sets of such records have you analyzed?
So since 2019, I've analyzed approximately 575 sets of cell phone records assigned across 166 cases with the police department.
And approximately how many electronic devices have you examined? If you can tell us.
I was about to say, if I'm not at 1,000 devices since 2021, I'm close to it.
Are you familiar with the term geolocation data?
Yes.
What is it?
Geolocation data is information that is collected by cell phones, social media companies, sometimes cellular network providers that help establish where a device was during a particular period of time. The most commonly known one that we all may be familiar with is the Global Positioning System, or GPS. If anybody had to put in the address for the courtroom today and use it, they've used geolocation data.
So approximately how many times have you used geolocation data?
I cannot count how many times I've had to use GPS since I was 18, 19 years old.
Okay. Have you ever testified regarding cellular records and geolocation data?
I have.
approximately how many times?
So I've testified at least 5 times in 15th Circuit General Sessions Court and once in 15th Circuit Family Court.
Have you ever been qualified as an expert in the 15th Circuit?
Yes,
Are you familiar with a program called Celebrate?
I am.
Can you tell us what that is?
So Celebrate is one of a more common forensic tool used to access information in a digital device. For instance, a cell phone. We can use the tool to make a copy of the information in the device, download it, and then parse it out into a form that we can easily read and analyze the data that's inside.
When you say parse, that's like a fancy word. That's just meaning it makes it readable?
Yes, we're converting what the data is stored in computer code on the phone. It's turned into words on a screen for us.
And are you trained and experienced to use the Celebrate program?
Yes,
How long have you been using it?
I've been using it since 2022.
Since, I'm sorry.
2022?
Okay. And does Celebrate offer any type of certifications?
Yes. Currently, I hold my certified Celebrate operator and physical analyzer license, and recently recerted it in 2024.
What does it take to obtain those certifications?
That is a 40-hour class through Celebrate where you're learning how to use the tool, the type of information that you'll download, type of information that you can analyze, and then they test you at the end of it to make sure that you actually retain the information they taught you.
And I believe you said you just recertified?
Recertified in 2024. We have to recertify every 2 years to keep our license current and to keep up with the changes in technology.
And I imagine you passed that certification?
Yes, I did.
Did you use Celebrate to extract data in this case?
I used Magnet's Gray Key, which is another forensic tool commonly used with Celebrate to image devices.
Are you able to extract data from every device, from every phone, I'll say?
No.
What affects whether you can extract information?
So most phones store your data encrypted, and for you to extract that information and be able to parse it out or use it, you have to have the PIN code or the encryption keys for the data on the phone. Depending on the type of phone, the support that's out there, the current security patch for the software that's the phone is using, several other factors, we may only be able to get a portion of the data or none of the data. It just kind of depends on the make and model of the phone.
If you are able to extract data from a phone, does either Celebrate or Magnet Gray Key alter the data that it's extracting from the phone?
No.
Are you familiar with the term user data?
Yes.
What is it?
So user data are artifacts or particular items on a phone that kind of identify who's using the phone, who owns the phone, the accounts that are programmed into it. That type of information could be health data on your Apple device. It could be your iCloud email address. You could have your name, your phone number, an emergency contact programmed into a phone, your Facebook account. Things along those lines are what we consider user data.
Does Celebrate or Magnet Gray Key alter any of the user data when you extract data?
No.
Your Honor, at this time we would offer Sergeant Marcus as an expert in digital forensic cellular record and geolocation analysis.
All right, any challenges, questions, or objections?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I do.
All right.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good, sir.
Good. Thank you for being here. Just want to make sure I got some timelines right.
Mhm.
So you started in 2021 in digital forensics. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And so murder that we're here to discuss today occurred on October 2nd, 2020. Is that right?
Correct.
You also tell us that you started your exploration or learning about Celebrate. That was in 2022?
No, my use of Celebrate started in 2021. My use of cellular record or analyzing cellular records started in 2019.
Okay. Yeah, well, I thought you testified that when you started to utilize the program Celebrate was in 2022.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And so what I have for you guys is records from Celebrate. You said you used Celebrate in this case?
No. I did use Celebrate in this case.
Okay. You did use Celebrate.
I did use Celebrate in this case. That's
Okay.
correct.
Can you describe, I've heard about what sounds to me like education you've acquired since becoming an officer, what was your formal education?
I've got the highest formal education I have is an associate's degree.
Okay, and where did you do that?
Or Georgetown Technical College. Yes, sir.
And what was the major?
Just in general criminal justice.
Criminal justice. Okay. All right. So your Cellbrite certification, didn't that? Can I help you out?
Thanks.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Let's just make sure we're clear on this Cellbrite certification. That's about how you use the data, right?
It's the proper use of the tool to download, image the data, and then to look through and explore the data that's actually being parsed out so that you can sift through it and separate the different items. For instance, text messages will end up being in one category so you can easily find them, images will be in another, device logs will be in a third, and so on.
Okay, so explain to me the science, the methodology behind the extraction.
That I can't, because that particular information is proprietary. Cellbrite doesn't explain to us how they download the information from the phone.
That's right. So you are purporting to be an expert in something that requires you to use specialized knowledge to download something, but they don't even tell you the mechanism or how you do that, correct?
That's correct. They do not explain to us how they do that.
So if you don't have the methodology or how you do something, then you can't be an expert in it, can you, sir?
They explained to us the process that we need to go through to use the tool, to download the data, and to analyze that data. The specific coding that they use to access the phone, bypass certain security functions, they don't explain that to us.
And you would agree with me that you are, just while we're, did you do what kind of extraction did you do here? Was it a physical or logical extraction?
For which device?
For Megan Jackson's phones.
So Megan Jackson's phones I did not download the data from.
You did not download the data from Megan Jackson's phone?
No, Lieutenant Ben Wells with the Sheriff's Office downloaded that information. I used the information to analyze and corroborate other information that I particularly obtained through search warrant and then analyzed for this investigation.
Okay, would you be able to tell me which phones you use Cellbrite or a comparative platform for?
There were a number of devices that were collected during this investigation. Initially had not been processed because we did not have the support at the time to process them, and I processed them recently once we obtained the tools and the support to be able to do so. Several USB drives. There was, I believe, a download for, it was a list of about 15 to 20 items, and unfortunately I don't have all of those in front of me, so I'd hate to misspeak and tell you an item that I didn't, but there was a number of them that were done.
Okay. Could you just identify for me any that you might remember being involved with?
I believe there was a device for Erica Dantel. There was an iPad or two that were collected from Gregory Rice's house or from one of the scenes from the search. Unfortunately, I don't learn a lot about where the devices were collected, just they turned the items in for processing with the appropriate legal authority, and I download those devices and then look at that data.
Okay. And you didn't, so when you say, because I want to make sure I'm getting the right terminology myself, extract versus download, just so when you say you downloaded, when you said just use the word downloaded, is that the same as extract or is that something different?
So it's a very similar term. Sometimes I'll say image, sometimes I'll say download, sometimes I'll say extraction. It's all the same thing. We're taking a copy of the data that's on the device so that we can analyze it. It's not removing the data from the device, it's just making a copy of it.
Okay. And again, how are you doing that? What is the methodology for that removal?
It depends on the particular device and the support. We have several forensic tools we have the ability to use. For instance, I used magnet gray key on a few of these devices and Cellbrite UFID on several others. Depending on if it's an Apple or Android, one of the companies may have more support for one than the other. So depending on what level of support they have, what's the highest level of a image or extraction, the amount of data we can obtain, we'll use that particular forensic tool so that we can obtain as much data as possible.
As we sit here today, are you familiar with Toll, Sutikino, and Iqbal Bustami? You know
Not,
any of their work?
are those people?
Those are, I know that, yes, those are people.
No, I am not.
Okay. So you haven't read the capabilities of Cellbrite Universal Forensics Extraction Device and Mobile Device Forensics?
I'm
You know
not
that?
familiar with that article or.
Okay. You would agree with me, you're familiar, aren't you, with the criticisms of Cellbrite and the Cellbrite software?
Not familiar with the criticisms. Can you be more specific?
Sure. Inaccuracy is a criticism, sir.
Not familiar with it, no, sir.
Okay. Have you taken the time to do any of your own independent study of Cellbrite and similar platforms?
No.
Don't you think if you're going to be an expert in it, that you ought to have that knowledge?
In using Cellbrite or knowing exactly how it works?
In knowing what its recognized flaws are?
In its recognized flaws, during our training, we're explained what we should be looking for as the extraction or as the imaging occurs and as the parsing occurs. And we're provided indicators if certain things are not working correctly.
And you stated, and one of the criticisms is, and you've stated it, but is that they will not teach you the methodology about how to utilize the software itself.
No, the specific method that they use or the specific coding that they use to access the phone is considered proprietary, and they do not share that with us.
And in this case, although it sounded like maybe you're not even the witness I need to speak to in terms of Megan Jackson's phone, but what steps did you take after you did any of the extractions that you may have done in this case to verify this, to make sure that they were actually accurate extractions?
So the information that I did use from the extractions from Megan Jackson's phone, I was able to validate I used geolocation data for starters. And the information that I obtained from her phone, I was able to validate with both video surveillance that was obtained and cellular records.
Oh, no, sir, I think you misunderstand me. I'm not asking about, and I apologize if I didn't ask a good question. What I mean is, you've got a set of material from either the extraction or the download.
Mm-hmm.
But did you take that to another system and run that same extraction and compare the two for any discrepancies?
No, what we ended up doing is using a separate set of data to validate that data. So there's several different ways you can validate information when you're downloading or extracting something, imaging something from a phone. You can use a separate tool to try and validate that information. You can pull up the device itself and see if the device is displaying the same information that you downloaded. You can look through the computer code, read the binary, and see if it's saying exactly what it should be displaying on the phone or the image. Or you can use a completely separate independent piece of data to validate it. For instance, if I've got a geolocation data from a phone that says that you're at a particular gas station and at a particular date and time, and I go to that same gas station, pull up digital video, and I have a video that shows you standing there with your phone in your hand, that video has validated the location information pulled from the phone.
And that's specific to location. But what about things? Because these are massive, right? These are massive bits of data that come out. It's not just GPS location. These are text messages, images, right? This is a full panel of information from these things. Correct, sir?
Correct.
And one of the things that you could look to see is, are there any duplicate messages, right? And that a telltale sign of there being an inaccuracy with the download. You
No.
learned that, sir?
I would not agree with that statement. No.
Okay. Did you tell me if you did a logical or physical extraction data for the devices that you did do?
Well, that would depend on the particular device. Again, I don't have that list in front of me. The majority of them, I believe, they were full file system extractions.
Okay. And do you categorize that as being physical or logical?
So that would be just under the physical range.
Okay.
Logical would be at the bottom range, or the least amount of information that you could get. A physical extraction would be the most, an exact bit-for-bit copy of the entire area of storage on a phone or a device.
And you would agree with me that if you ran that physical extraction, that because it's, as you said, a little more complete, you should still be able to recover deleted items.
So when we do obtain a full file system from a device,
Sir?
that does contain that unallocated space or space where deleted items could be stored, yes.
So I just want to make sure it's clear, you didn't cross-validate any of the extractions that you did do in this case with X-ray, magnet axum, or oxygen forensics?
None of the extractions that I did in this case, I validated with another tool, that's correct.
Okay. And just so it's clear, as we sit here today, you can't really tell me which phones or electronic devices you were involved in the extraction of, but you did rule out those as Megan Jackson's.
Yes, I did not extract any of the devices or the devices that was possessed by Megan Jackson at the time of this incident.
Okay. Your Honor, I don't like to make an argument about his qualifications, Your Honor.
All right.
Yes, sir. What you've heard from Detective Marcus?
Sorry.
Sergeant Marcus.
That's good.
What you've heard from Sergeant Marcus is he does not have the methodology. The science behind being an expert is to have the methodology. It's literally in the rule. As you have identified earlier, when they put up an expert that we did not contest the qualifications to, they're here to be able to explain the science behind something. And he has just testified under oath that the science behind what he's attempting to perform, the company will not provide it to him. So he does not have that science. He has no ownership of that science. He has also testified that he himself did not do any extracting of Megan Jackson's phones. He can't tell you which phones he did extract or do the extractions from, and he didn't cross-validate those with other similar platforms. And so there's no way for his testimony to be deemed reliable, Your Honor, in terms of any kind of digital forensics or extraction.
All right. I find this witness to be an expert over defendant's objection.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Direct examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, let's get to this case. Were you involved in the investigation into the disappearance and murder of Gregory Rice?
Yes.
And so before we get into the forensic work that you did, are you familiar with the term NAMUS?
Yes, I am.
And that's NAMUS. Can you tell the jury what NAMUS is?
NAMUS is a program that's sponsored by the DOJ for missing and unidentified people. It's a networking platform. It's online. It allows officers, medical examiners, hospitals, even the public to network with each other across the country. We can take a person who's listed as missing or someone who unfortunately is deceased and we have no idea who they are, enter them into this system, and hopefully get information to help us identify them or return them home.
And I apologize if I missed this, what type of information can you put into NAMUS?
So demographic information about people, their name, address, where they were last seen, clothing, contact information for family are all items we can put in there. Circumstances about their disappearance. We can even go as far as entering in dental records, listing contacts for familiar DNA if we need to go that route to help identify someone.
Did you enter Greg Rice into NAMUS for this case?
Yes, I did.
What information did you enter for him?
I ended up entering his demographics, some case details about his disappearance, a photograph of him, and dental records that were obtained during this investigation.
I am showing you states, it's already been admitted, Your Honor, States Exhibit 13. Are those the dental records that you received and used to enter Greg Rice in NAMUS?
Yes.
Why is it important to get, for instance, dental records?
Like I mentioned before, unfortunately sometimes when people go missing, they've end up deceased in different places of the country. Someone may recover someone's body, and one of the ways that we're able to identify someone is through dental records.
switching gears a little bit. The jury's already heard that Greg Rice went missing on October 2nd of 2020. When did you first become aware of where he was killed?
Late October, early November.
Not where he was found, where he was killed.
Most recently, very recently.
Okay. Where was he killed?
That would be along was in the village of Arrowheads in the Myrtle Beach section of Ward County.
Okay. So now let me get into your forensic work a little bit. As part of your involvement, did you try to corroborate other information that the team of investigators had learned?
Yes.
So what types of information did you review or use to corroborate those items?
So I used cellular records. Those are those records that are generated by cell phone and stored by a network provider. I used records from digital downloads from cell phones. I also used digital surveillance photos and videos that were recovered at different places, as well as still shots from a automatic license plate reader.
I am, Your Honor, if I may approach with admitted exhibits 5, 7, 8, and 9. If you could just look at those and tell me if those are some of the phone records that you used.
Yes, they are.
Did you in fact initial each of the either disks or thumb drives?
I did.
Next, showing you admitted states exhibits 23 through 34. Excuse me. Do you recognize those exhibits?
Yes, I do.
And what specifically are those exhibits?
Those are photographs from a license plate reader system.
And you mentioned that you reviewed surveillance footage, so I'm going to approach with admitted exhibits 14, 14A, 14B, 14C, 15, 16, and 17. You can tell me if you also reviewed those.
I do.
And all of those items relate to the Abuelo's restaurant?
Yes. Those are still shots and video from the Abuelo's restaurant.
And then, did you, approaching with admitted states exhibits 21 and 22, did you review surveillance video provided by Just Ask Hal located in the Lowe's Food Plaza?
I did.
and also some clips from that video?
Yes, ma'am.
And are those exhibits what you reviewed?
Yes.
Did you also review?
She's leading the witness. Did you
Overruled. Go ahead.
Did you also review surveillance video from River's Edge community,
Yes.
showing you previously admitted exhibits 136 and 138?
Yes, I recognize those.
And you reviewed these prior to your analysis?
Correct.
And then previously admitted exhibits 44, 45, 46, and 47.
Yes, I'm familiar with these. These are still shots from I believe it was a trail camera owned by the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources.
And just make sure you keep your voice up so everyone can hear.
Yes, sorry.
And where was the trail camera located?
That was in the wildlife preserve on the north side of International Drive. I believe it's called the Lewis Bay Ocean Bay Heritage Preserve. That sounds right.
That's why I call it. Were you familiar with where the victim lived when he was alive?
Yes.
Where was that?
Flint Lake Apartments in the village of Arrowhead.
Did you have access to and review stills from license plate readers from the Arrowhead community?
Yes, they have two license plate readers, one at the entrance to from Barclay Road and the other one at the entrance off of Burkell Road.
I'm sorry, what were the entrances?
Clay Pond, I apologize. Clay Pond and Burkell Road are the two.
Showing you previously admitted States Exhibit 10 and 11. Are those the LPR stills that you reviewed?
Yes, they are.
Did you review data extractions performed by Lieutenant Ben Wells?
I did.
Showing you States Exhibit May I approach Your Honor with this?
Yes,
Your Honor, I'm approaching States Exhibit 145. Do you recognize that phone?
This is one of the devices that I examined and downloaded.
Okay, and can you tell to whom it belonged?
I believe this device belonged to, I believe, one of the Dontels, either Erica Dontel or Christopher Dontel.
Would it help to open any part of that?
Unfortunately, I don't believe the information on the owner would be listed on
Just
this
make sure you
envelope.
keep your voice up so that
I'm sorry, I said I don't believe the owner information would be listed on this envelope. It is a device that I examined because my initials are on the back, and this is the labeling that I add to a device that I examine. Erica Dontel, I believe.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time we would ask that Exhibit 145 be admitted.
objection.
To the device itself, no, sir, Your Honor.
All right, States Exhibit 145, right?
Yes, Your Honor, 145.
145 is admitted as evidence without objection.
So I believe you just testified that you performed a data extraction on Exhibit 145.
Correct.
Did you did you provide that extraction to the solicitor's office?
Yes, I did.
Is that entirely correct? Your Honor,
Yes.
we would object to this. This is thousands and thousands and thousands of pages being sought to be introduced through this witness. This is a cell extraction. It is incredibly voluminous. It is, they can't object to putting in an entire extraction. There's no telling how much information in there is inappropriate, not relevant, massively prejudicial potentially. I mean, there's no way you need to know it all when there's so much going on. It can't possibly be utilized, placed in evidence in fullness. No issue with them if they want to show what portions of the extraction they want to use or give us some general idea, but to put into evidence an entire extraction, this could go back years. I mean, this is not appropriate.
How's it identified?
Your Honor, it is State's Exhibit 95.
State's Exhibit 95 is admitted into evidence over defendant's objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. Did I show this to you? Sorry, I'm losing track. Is that the extraction that you did?
Yes, it is.
Did you also obtain both Google and geofence record, or did you review Google and geofence records in this case?
I reviewed Google records that we obtained through a geofence warrant.
Okay, so I'm showing you admitted State's Exhibits 142 and 150.
Sir, I didn't catch whose phone that was, I'm sorry.
I'm
I
sorry.
didn't catch whose device that was. I didn't see it.
It's not contained to a specific device. It's Google records and geolocation.
Oh, okay.
This particular exhibit is the data.
And you're looking at 142?
142 is the data that I obtained during the Google geofence warrant or search. And then 150 contains the records for two Google accounts and any Google account that's associated with a particular IMEI number, which would go back to the Christopher Dontel and Megan Jackson.
Keep your voice up. So based on your review of all of this information, were you in fact able to corroborate a number of parts of the investigation?
Yes, I was.
And let me back up just for 1 minute. Prior to this investigation beginning, were you familiar with Christopher Dontel and Megan Jackson?
Yes, I was.
How were you familiar with that?
During my time doing homicide investigations, Christopher Dontel showed up to, and Megan Jackson both showed up to a number of scenes of mine that I worked.
Okay. And as you were doing your analysis, they were the identified suspects in this case?
Yes.
And Your Honor, this is Exhibit 143, a copy of which I provided to defense on Monday.
Your Honor, my understanding was when this was discussed, this would be demonstrative evidence. That was, I'm just familiar with identification.
I'm showing you that so that you can identify if it's presentation.
Okay.
Also, but if you can take a look at this and tell me if this, did I ask you, did you prepare a presentation summarizing your findings?
Yes, it did.
Is that thumb drive does that thumb drive contain a copy of that presentation?
Yes, it does.
Did you review it prior to testifying today?
I did.
Did you in fact initial that? Do you call it a thumb drive or a jump drive?
Thumb drive, jump drive, USB drive, it's many names.
Okay. Did you initial that jump drive?
I did.
Is that a fair and accurate representation of the presentation that you
Reviewed,
created?
yes.
Your Honor, I would at this time ask to publish the presentation.
Put in the evidence, has it?
I would like to admit it as an exhibit.
And that's number 143.
143, Your Honor. Yes.
The objection.
Yes, sir, Your Honor. You might recall that before we started this trial, we had a conversation about this very piece of information. I objected to it because I had not gotten it prior to trial. It was presented, given to me on Friday, and I was told it would be demonstrative evidence only, not for admission. So she is not entitled to admit, Your Honor, under court's private rule.
I'm sorry, did Your Honor want me to respond?
Yes.
Well, I believe that the context of that argument, Your Honor, did say that this would be allowed to be shown to the jury.
All right.
I have no problem, if Your Honor, if their objection is that they don't want it to go back to the jury when they deliberate, that's fine.
Okay, I recall it now. I'll allow her to publish it.
Yeah, and I was just, again, I know what it said, but I'll just restate for my client's benefit that this is just simply some summary of it, Your Honor. It's not, I don't think it's appropriate, they shouldn't even be showing it, but I just want to object on it.
But it is demonstrative.
It is demonstrative, Your Honor.
I'll allow
Yeah,
it.
that's
That's right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And Your Honor, if we just need one moment, we're going to
Okay.
get the laptop set up. And with the court's permission, Detective Marcus will step off the stand just so that he can pause and stop the PowerPoint and explain why necessary.
As long as he is by a microphone where the court can pick up the testimony.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I do have one more component to my objection, which I didn't know prior to trial, but now. During the voir dire, he very clearly said he was not involved in the extraction of Megan Jackson's phone. You heard that. This presentation involves an exceptional amount of evidence that would have been received from the extraction of Megan Jackson's phone. It would be improper for him to be testifying about the extraction with which he was not involved.
Overruled that.
Thank you, Your Honor. Is that the microphone? Yeah. Don't worry about that. You can stand right here by the, over there. Oh.
Your Honor, maybe do a little moving around myself so that I can see.
Step over here and get out of here.
Can you hear me okay?
Speak louder. Pretend you're yelling.
Can you hold for a second?
Do you want to put it over here?
All right.
He's just got to navigate to the file, Your Honor.
Just while he's navigating, so that I'm not interrupting their entire presentation, can I just have a standing objection to any slide? There's a number of them which involves Megan Jackson's data. Would you like me, I'll make it as we go, I just don't want to be frustrating the court or, well, really the court.
I'll let you have an objection to the entire exhibit, so that'll be on the record.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So, very nice title page. Are you familiar with cell towers?
Yes, like I explained earlier, the way cellular network works, your provider owns a number of towers that they have placed all across their coverage area. All throughout Horry County, these towers exist. You may have seen a couple of them. This is an example of two that are in Horry County. If anybody's familiar with the Bay Road area, that is one of those two off of Bay Road in my Homestown Burgess community. Cellular towers receive and send signals to cell phones, and this allows that data to be processed from the phone into the tower through the network and get to where it needs to go.
And then are cell towers, when a phone is using a cell tower, is it divided in any way?
Yes, so as you can see on the screen, this little triangle piece at the top, not all towers look like this, the majority of them do, but those are the array of antennas. Now, when we look at cellular records and look at a particular connection that a phone makes on a 2D map, when we're analyzing those records, it'll look like this. The tower is located in the center of the map, right here, or as in this one, and the general direction of the phone during that connection is in the direction of this shaded area. We'll have a wedge. Most towers are separated into what they call 3 sectors. You can have more, you can have less. It kind of depends on the coverage area, but typically you have 3.
Can I stop you there for 1 second?
Absolutely.
When you are talking about the shaded area, are you asserting that a phone is within just the colored section, or are you referring more to what I do, the arms of the sector?
No, it's the arms of the sector. So the shaded area is just a graphic aid to show that the phone is in that general direction. The shaded area does not depict that the phone is actually in that spot, or does it depict the entire coverage of the tower, just that to help show that it's in that general direction from the tower.
Okay. And are you familiar with the term per call measurement data?
Yes. So per call measurement data is the distance from the tower that the phone is at the time of the connection. That is measured by the amount of time it takes for the signal to travel from the tower to the phone and back, or from the phone to the tower and back. Sometimes we can get this with our records as well, and it gives us an idea, again, much more precise, or it gives us a better idea of where a phone is at during this particular period of time. On a map, you'll see the center of the tower, the 2 arms that for that particular sector, or that set of antennas that are being used, the general direction that that phone was in, and then somewhere along this arc, in this particular graphic right here, is where that phone is actually at that point in time at this time.
And you've talked a little bit about geolocation data. I'm sorry I'm standing behind you. I'm just trying to so that everyone can see. You've talked about geolocation data. Do you have a slide to represent that?
So geolocation data, again, like I said, the most typical example of it is derived from GPS. Will appear like this. You'll get a particular location and a level of accuracy. And that level of accuracy is measured by a distance. So this particular graphic here shows a geolocation data, or a hit from a particular device, unassociated with this case, just an example. But this circle is a 35-meter diameter. So the phone, in this instance, is located inside that circle.
All right, let's move on to the specifics of this case. What numbers did you focus on?
So for this particular case, I focused on one number for that belonged to Greg Rice, one that belonged to Megan Jackson, and then 2 that belonged to Christopher Dontel.
I see that you have different colors up on the slide. What do those carry throughout the presentation?
Yes. So anytime that we're talking about phone records, geolocation data that's associated with Greg Rice, it's going to display in blue. The graphic will be in blue. Anytime we're talking about the device that is associated with Megan Jackson, it will show up in purple. And then anytime we're talking about location information or device information regarding Chris Dontel, either one of his phone numbers, will pop up in red.
And I see like a little blurb under each number. Did you validate that these numbers were in fact associated with those particular individuals?
Yes, so once the records were returned from the provider, in this instance, all of them were Verizon. Verizon has each individual subscribe to that account. So for instance, the number belonging to Megan Jackson here that ends in 4742, Verizon said their bill goes to Megan Jackson. Megan Jackson is the subscriber for this number.
And so when you began trying to corroborate parts of the investigation or aid the investigation, did you begin by focusing on the victim, Greg Rice?
Yes, so this originally came out as a missing persons complaint. And anytime we start looking into a missing persons complaint, we always look at what they were doing around the time that they were last seen, their last contact, when we're looking at records like this. The investigation learned that around 5 p.m. on October 2nd, the day of his disappearance, he should have been home. And these cell phone records that I reviewed between 5 p.m. and 9:45 p.m. corroborate that. You can see here that the tower that is being used is servicing the area that Greg Rice's residence is. This is where Flint Lake Apartments is at, if you're not familiar with it, and the villages of Arrowhead. These distancing lines are the distance from the tower to the phone during that period of time. Now, there is a level of margin of accuracy with that particular distancing line, but these are consistent with that device being in the area of his residence during this time. And this is an overlay of 58 tower connections. So there's 58 data connections that were going on during this time showing this.
What might cause a data connection?
If you were browsing Facebook, if you were pulled up a web browser and looked at something, any social media, you could have the weather app running in the background of your phone. You don't have to directly use your phone, but have something running on your phone that connects to the internet for information. That would cause a data connection.
Now I see your time period there ends at 9:45. Did something happen at 9:45?
Yes, so one of the other things that we look at is who people were talking with during this period of time when they were last seen, or around the time of what we believe is their disappearance. At 9:45 p.m., Mr. Rice received an incoming phone call from the number associated with Megan Jackson. This graph depicts the tower that is being used by Gregory Rice's phone at the time of this connection, and this connection was approximately 2 minutes and 19 seconds.
Was there were there any additional contacts in this general time frame between Greg Rice's phone and Megan Jackson's phone?
There was one other connection, and that was at 9:58 p.m. This, again, is depicting the tower location for Gregory Rice's device. Again, you can see it's consistent with it being in the area of his residence. This occurs at 9:58 p.m., and it's only approximately 13 seconds in length.
Were you able to determine the last time that Greg Rice's phone connected to a tower?
Yes, and one of the things that we look at is where's that last activity. So that last activity for the phone associated with Greg Rice on the cellular network was at 11:06 p.m. on October 2nd, 2020. This particular graph is showing a tower that is actually now servicing the area. This is Highway 17, this is International Drive, so this is the upper end of River Oaks, the bottom end of that wildlife preserve, and there's the Lowe's food parking lot and all those businesses right through there.
And again, is there any way to tell, or does the fact that there was a data connection there mean that someone was actively manipulating the phone, or could it be one of those apps that's running in the background?
There's no way to tell. It could have been someone using the phone. It could have been just a push notification on the weather app, or you received a message through Facebook, something along those lines. It could be inactivity in the background or activity in the background.
Once you were able to determine where Greg Rice's phone finally pinged, what other things did you do to corroborate or validate?
So this information was passed on to investigators. Canvass was done of that area. And during that canvass, a video surveillance was obtained from the Just Ask How store, which is located next to the Lowe's Food in that plaza right there at the International Drive. when I reviewed this video, the two cars that are pulling into the parking lot resembled the two vehicles that Christopher Dontel and Megan Jackson used on a regular basis through the course of work.
Hope it's still playing, correct?
Yes, it is.
When you reviewed this clip at any time, did you see Gregory Rice or anyone other than Megan Jackson and Christopher Dontel?
No, I was able to see that Megan Jackson and Christopher Dontel got out of their vehicles, respective vehicles, but did not see anybody else that I recognized. And this is at 11:08 p.m. right now. It's displaying on the video. The video is actually 10 minutes past, but the correct time is 11:08 p.m.
It started approximately a minute ago, though, right?
Correct.
Now, you said, as this is playing out, you said that you were aware of the fact that Christopher Dontel and Megan Jackson were suspects in the case. Did you, once you sort of established the last bit of Gregory Rice's life, did you then turn to the defendants?
Yes, it did. So we use cellular records to help corroborate information regarding the defendants and their whereabouts on that particular day as well. This particular graph shows a cell phone connection for both Christopher Dontel's phone and Megan Jackson's phone. The tower, they're both using the same tower right here located in the center of these two wedges. The red represents the connection in the side of the tower that the phone for Christopher Dontel's is using, and the purple represents the records for Megan Jackson.
And if you already explained this, please forgive me, but why would a phone connect with a particular sector of a tower?
It shows the side of the tower that the phone was on during the time of the connection.
And related to that, how does a cell phone pick which particular tower to connect to?
So the cell phone, or cell phones in general, are constantly looking to see what towers they can receive signals from. And when you go to use that phone, they pick the tower with the strongest signal.
Did you use some of the other evidence that you reviewed to verify this phone data location?
Yes, so anytime that we're looking at this information, we always try to verify and validate the accuracy of these records. In this particular instance, let me go back to this slide for a second. This phone connection occurs at 6:20 p.m. on October 2nd, 2020. And it services, the tower that's being used services the River's Edge community. This is Highway 90, and this is the other end of International Drive. These are still shots from the surveillance video at the River's Edge entry gate. And these videos depict Megan Jackson's vehicle leaving the gate at 6:16 p.m. and the vehicle for Christopher Dontel at 6:20 p.m.
You also indicated that you had access to some still photos from a game camera from the cursor.
Yes. So we also use these still photos to help corroborate the accuracy of those cell phone records. At 6:26 p.m., these two vehicles were observed driving into the preserve, which is just down the street from the intersection of Highway 90 and International Drive, right there where the River's Edge community is at. Both of these photos depict Megan Jackson, or a vehicle similar to Megan Jackson's and similar to Christopher Dontel's, entering this intersection inside the preserve, and then at 6:40, those vehicles leaving the preserve.
Let me just stop you there for a second. Are you familiar with this location? So like River's Edge to the preserve?
Yes.
Okay. So does the elapse of time from the River's Edge surveillance photos match with approximately how long it might take to get to the preserve?
Yes, it would. It's not maybe a mile or two.
Okay. was there further validation?
So at 6:40 p.m., which is when these two vehicles are captured leaving the preserve, there's also another network connection, cellular network connection between Christopher Dontel's phone and Megan Jackson's phone. This is using a tower that is a very large, tall tower right there off of International Drive outside of the preserve. And it is servicing the area where this camera was at the time that those pictures were taken.
When the jury heard testimony before about the timeline, I believe the next sort of point was Abuelos.
Yes, so moving forward in time a little bit, at 6:59, between 6:59 and 7:15 p.m., we've got some information that shows that these devices are now being used in the area of the Coastal Grand Mall, Myrtle Beach Airport, Robert Grissom Harrison Boulevard area. This particular graph depicts cellular connection between Christopher Dontel's phone and Megan Jackson's phone at 6:59 p.m. This is the tower being used by Christopher Dontel's phone. This is the tower being used by Megan Jackson's phone. And at 7:09 p.m., right here, it's a little difficult to see, but right underneath this pin that says Abuelos, this purple information, this is actually geolocation information from Megan Jackson's cell phone showing that the device is in the area of the Abuelos restaurant.
And so the geolocation data gives you a little bit more of a specific location of the phone, whereas the tower data is giving you the sector.
Yes, so the tower data gives you the general area that the phone is in at the time of the connection. But this geolocation data is very specific. It's right there at the restaurant.
Did you use any surveillance, video, or other means to validate this information?
So again, during a canvass for security footage during this investigation, footage was pulled from Abuelos. This is a clip of that video that occurs at 7:06 p.m. It depicts Christopher Dontel and Megan Jackson walking into the restaurant. Christopher Dontel being in the blue sweater and Miss Jackson being in the black.
Was there further validation done from surveillance at Abuelos?
So at 7:09 p.m. I mentioned that there's geolocation data pulled from Megan Jackson's device that showed she was at the Abuelos, or the device was at the Abuelos restaurant. This particular slide is a snippet from, or a still shot from the security footage at Abuelos. And right here in this red circle is Christopher Dontel and Megan Jackson sitting. It appears Megan Jackson is manipulating a device in her hands like a cell phone. That corresponds with the time that her geolocation data from her phone shows that the phone is at Abuelos.
Did you have information about when they left Abuelos?
Reviewing that security footage from Abuelos, the footage shows that they walked out of Abuelos at 7:57 p.m.
What was the next point that you looked at?
So again, looking at all of this data together, the very next thing in the timeline of all this information was two geolocation hits from Megan Jackson's cell phone, pulled from her cell phone, that placed the device in the area of the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home. And this was at 9:14 p.m. on October 2nd, 2020. And looking forward into cell phone records in line, at 9:45 p.m., when I mentioned earlier that Gregory Rice received a phone call from the number associated with Megan Jackson, here is a graph that shows that connection, this time displaying where Megan Jackson's device is at the time of the connection. Megan Jackson's phone is using a tower that services the area of the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home at 9:45 p.m.
And again, Greg's phone is still same visual as before. It is using the tower that would cover the area of his apartment.
Correct.
Okay. You mentioned a second phone call between Megan Jackson and Greg Rice.
Yes, so we looked at that second phone call now that we had both sets of records. And during that second phone call, the shorter one at 9:58 p.m., you can see that both phones are using the same tower, same sector, and it's the area that services the residents of Greg Rice.
Course indulgence for 1 moment. Thank you. Did you also, I think, well, you've already identified that you reviewed LPR stills from the Arrowhead community.
Yes, ma'am, I did. So at 10 p.m., the license plate reader at the entrance to the village of Arrowhead, the one right there at Clay Pond and Arrowhead Boulevard, captures the image of the van used by Megan Jackson regularly for work, pulling into the neighborhood.
If you can, were you able to tell whether Greg Rice's device moved at all around the time of that second? And if I'm jumping ahead, you just tell me I'm jumping ahead. I'm jumping ahead. So did you also look to the LPR still of the van associated with Megan Jackson leaving Arrowhead?
Yes, it did. So just to show where this LPR is at, this is the village of the Flint Lake apartment complex right here. The LPR is at the entrance to Arrowhead Boulevard and Clay Pond Road.
And before you, this is animated, right?
This is not, no.
Okay. Because before you go on, I want to ask you a question related to the two Arrowhead stills.
Okay.
I believe you said that the van entered at 10 o'clock.
Enters at 10 o'clock and then leaves at 10:06 p.m.
Okay. Based on that time period that the van was in the Arrowhead community, did you perform any sort of little real-life experiments?
I did drive the distance between the license plate reader to Greg Rice's residence and back to see if that stretch of road could be traversed during that time frame.
What did you find?
That it was easy for the vehicle to traverse that time frame and back out with a few moments to spare.
And so then if you can, okay. Was there cell site location information for Megan Jackson and Gregory Rice during this relevant time period?
Yes, so once we identified some of these records and overlaid them, this is what we ended up finding. So you're going to see, this is an overlay of tower hits, and this is an animated slide, so you're going to see certain things as it goes. These are connections by Gregory Rice's phone. It's popping up right here. There's that overlay of Megan Jackson's phone. And you just saw the two Village of Arrowhead hits as the vehicle came in and then exited the community. And that keeps doing that when I pause it. What you're going to see is at 10:05 p.m. is the very first movement that we see from Greg Rice's phone. It is actually moves towers, and you'll see right here in a moment. The tower hit is actually servicing the area where the LPR is at. And that was at 10:05 p.m. A few seconds before 10:06 when that hits. Now you're seeing the records showing moving their way down or south, away from the Arrowhead community, and into the area where the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home, the neighborhoods right here at the end of Coventry, Palmetto Point are at. Now here at 10:16 p.m., here are two geolocation hits from Megan Jackson's device showing that the phone is again in the area of the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home, right where Greg Rice's cell phone records were consistent with. And again, 10:18 p.m., here is the tower that's being used by Greg Rice's phone. Here's the distancing data, this line that cuts through the center of the shaded area. And it's crossing right across the area where the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home is at.
Okay, I'm going to stop you again. Maybe go back for 1 second. What was the time when Greg Rice's phone switched towers?
It was at 10:05, I believe it was 10:05:55 p.m.
Would that tower change only register if the phone is making a connection of some sort?
Yes.
what does the change in tower suggest to you?
That the device is moving and it's no longer at the area that it was in previously.
Having gone through sort of the intersection of Megan Jackson and Gregory Rice, did you also then look at information related to Christopher Dontel?
Yes.
Is there a slide on it?
There is. It's continuing on through. So the records will continue to hit, consistently servicing the area of the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home until about 10:34 p.m.
So meaning Greg Rice's phone is connecting to that tower?
Correct. And then at 10:36 p.m. is when we start to see the first movement from that area with Greg Rice's phone. You can see the shorter arc right across here, now further back from the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home. This is 10:36 p.m. Moving forward in time, now we're seeing the device traveling away from that area previously. And just to show, here's the tower for Greg Rice's phone. Here are distancing arcs at 10:36, 10:40 p.m. And this little green dot that's in the center here is a license plate reader hit for the van for Megan Jackson's van. Traveling northbound now on 17. And you can see the records are grown further away. There's a tower change there. This is 10:41, 10:42 p.m. Almost 10th Avenue north of Myrtle Beach. The records are traveling southbound again. There's a license plate reader hit, that little green dot that just popped up. Again, with Megan Jackson's van now going southbound on 17. And still consistently in the area of these records for Gregory Rice. License plate reader hit eastbound on Farrell Parkway, which is the intersection right before the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home. Another tower connection for Gregory Rice's home, and then a westbound license plate reader hit moments later. This is now 10:54 p.m. The tower connections for the Gregory Rice phone still show the device generally moving in a northeasterly direction. And at 11:02 p.m., this red wedge you see in the upper right-hand corner, that is the first connection that we've gotten this time frame for Christopher Dontel's device.
What would cause a device to stop connecting with the tower?
If the phone was destroyed, powered off, disconnected from the cellular network, placed in some type of bag or container that would block those signals, that would cause the device to stop connecting. Here are the records at 11:07 p.m., which was the last connection for Gregory Rice's device. So this graph is depicting 11:06 p.m. Here's the last tower that Gregory Rice's device connects to, and this is 11:05 p.m. and then 11:07 p.m., showing that these two devices, Megan Jackson's and Christopher Dontel's, are in that same area, serviced by the tower where Gregory Rice's device was last connected to the cellular network.
Does the service provider affect tower selection by the cell phone?
No. No, the selection is done by the phone as long as it belongs to that provider. So an AT&T phone would connect to an AT&T tower, a Verizon phone would connect to a Verizon tower, and the phone picks which tower to connect to based off of the strongest signal that it's connecting to.
this is
The Just Ask Cal video again at
we don't need to.
11:07.
And that was the clip that just showed the van and the Explorer and the defendants.
Yes, and the clip continues to show that nobody else is in that little area with their car, and that the defendant gets in both defendants move from one vehicle to another and then leave.
Did you look at geolocation data for Megan Jackson after that last connection of Greg Rice's phone?
Yes, so at 11:12, there's a geolocation hit for Megan Jackson's device in the area of the Lowe's parking lot, which is right here. And then another one at 11:32 in the area of her residence.
And you've given us quite a bit of geolocation data for Megan Jackson. What affects whether or not you were able to get geolocation data for a particular device?
Whether or not certain functions on a device are turned on, collect that information, and a lot of that information will only stay on a device for a period of time. So for us to be able to get that from a device, we have to do it within a certain time frame.
Thank you. So after geolocation data placing the device back at Megan Jackson's residence, what was the next sort of relevant point or corroboration?
So at 12:14 a.m., the Just Ask Cal video shows the vehicle that Megan Jackson and Christopher Dontel previously left in has returned to the parking lot, which they are both in the Honda van right here. They both exit this vehicle and get inside of the Ford Explorer, which is Christopher Dontel's vehicle, and then leave the parking lot in that vehicle. And this is approximately a 3-minute clip.
Yeah. Now approach the book.
Can we fast forward?
I don't have to go over that one, but I can see it.
Yeah. Okay. And then, were there any LPR hits for Christopher Dontel's Ford Explorer?
Yes, so after the Ford Explorer leaves the parking lot, there are several points of data showing the vehicle traveling southbound on 17. Here's the first one where it hits the license plate reader coming off of Grissom Parkway and onto 17 heading south. And that is at 12:21 a.m. There is another license plate reader hit at 12:33 a.m. showing eastbound on Fair Parkway. Towards the bottom side of this graphic map. And then at 12:38 a.m., geolocation data from Megan Jackson's phone again shows that her device is at the Myrtle Beach funeral home.
Did that geolocation data show the presence of anyone else?
Yes, so during the search for other devices at certain areas during this investigation, through a Google geofence search warrant, I was able to identify another device in the area of Myrtle Beach funeral home at that time. A device associated with Joanne Cusick, the wife of Paul Cusick, was also captured at the Myrtle Beach funeral home at 12:40 a.m. So this graphic right here depicts Megan Jackson's geolocation data from her phone at 12:38, and then the larger circle is the geolocation data for the device associated with Joanne Cusick.
And who is she?
She is the wife of Paul Cusick, a trading bomber who does work for the Myrtle Beach funeral home.
What was the next? Yes. Okay, okay.
So moving forward in time, at 1:06 a.m., there's one more LPR hit for Christopher Dontel's car traveling northbound on 17 bypass, heading away from the Myrtle Beach funeral home. And then at 1:17 a.m., the video at Just Ask Howells captures his vehicle pulling back into the parking lot, both of them exiting the vehicle
getting back into the van, Megan Jackson's van, and then leaving the parking lot.
Does the Explorer stay at the Lowe's food parking lot?
Yes, the Explorer does stay at the Lowe's Street parking lot. And this is approximately a 2-minute video clip as well.
Okay. I think we can skip it.
At 1:37 a.m., Megan Jackson's device, her iOS geolocation information is showing that her device is now back at her residence on October 3rd, 2020.
At some point, did you learn that Greg Rice's body had been found?
Yes, so Greg Rice's body had been found on November 8th, 2020, in the water, the Little Pee Dee River, right there on the Ford County, Marion County line, right off of Highway 378. This is a map of that area. Let me give a little better depiction of where this is at. Here's the 378 highway going across the Little Pee Dee River. This is a picture, a crime scene photograph taken by our department showing the tarp that Greg Rice's body was found in up against trees in the Pee Dee River right there in that area that I just previously showed.
Okay.
These are pictures of the tarp and a cinder block and ratchet straps that were used to hold Greg Rice's deceased body in the water, taken again by our crime scene department. And this is another photograph of the ratchet strap and cinder block used to hold the tarp in the water.
Were you able to use other information to corroborate who had purchased these items?
Yes, so investigators had, through the investigation, we'd learned that all of these items were purchased at Lowe's hardware store. During a search to find out if there were any tickets with just these items on it, on October 3rd, 2020, at almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the day after Greg Rice's disappearance, all of these items were purchased by Christopher Dontel at the Lowe's hardware store in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. These are snippets from the Lowe's hardware video depicting Christopher Dontel with all of those items in his shopping cart. You can see on the one to the right that he is on his cell phone, or appears that he's on his cell phone. Here's an enlarged image so you can see the cinder blocks, ratchet straps, and the tarp in his cart. And at the time that these images were captured by the surveillance video, there is a phone call between Christopher Dontel and another number at 2:46 p.m. while he's at the Lowe's hardware store. This particular tower is located right here between 10th and 21st Avenue, and you can see that the connection is in the general direction of where the Lowe's hardware store is at.
Did you have information that allowed you to track Christopher Dontel's movements or any communications with Megan Jackson on October 3rd into October 4th?
So looking at the records that we've received, we did between 11:15 p.m. on October 3rd and 1:35 a.m. on October 4th. We had several sets of data that are relevant with this. So at 11:27 p.m. on October 3rd, there's a connection between Megan Jackson's phone and Christopher Dontel's phone. Both are using the tower that services their neighborhood. At 11:59 p.m., you can see another connection between Megan Jackson's device and Christopher Dontel's device. Megan Jackson is using, her phone is using the towers that services her neighborhood. Christopher Dontel's device is now using the tower that services that same area where the Lowe's food parking lot is. More importantly, where this LPR is located at, which his car crosses right at midnight. So moments after this phone connection starts. Moving forward in time a little bit, We have an LPR hit at 12:30 a.m. It's going northbound on Highway 17 away from the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home, which is approximately 30 minutes after the first hit that I just showed you a second ago. At 12:59 p.m., I'm sorry, a.m., so now we're October 4th, right at 1 o'clock in the morning, you have his car, or Christopher Dontel's car, hitting a license plate reader right here in Conway, heading westbound on 501. Cell phone records from a device associated with Christopher Dontel shows a connection at 1:10 in the morning, placing him in the area, or close to the area where the victim's body was found later on in time. And then at 1:30 a.m., Christopher Dontel's car is hitting a license plate reader in Conway, coming back eastbound on 501, back towards the Myrtle Beach area. And there's a cell phone connection between Christopher Dontel's phone and Megan Jackson's phone at 1:32 a.m. That's it.
Thank you. And you can have a seat. There was some testimony about license plates. Were you able to determine who the license plates belong to?
Yes, one of the plates that were just depicted in that presentation is owned by Horry County government, and it's the vehicle that Christopher Dontel used at work. The other license plate is owned by Charles Benjamin, who is the employer and of Megan Jackson at the time, and the owner of Grindstaff Transport.
I have nothing further at this time. I imagine Preston Burton has a question.
Cross-examination.
Your Honor, I would either request a break today or a break for cross-examining the expert, Your Honor. It's 4:40, and
All right, let me see the attorney's up here. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and break for the day. I'm going to let you go home. Leave your notepads in the jury box. Do not discuss the case. Do not conduct any independent investigations. I'm going to ask you to please be back at 9:15 tomorrow morning. Okay? Hope everybody has a good evening. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Marcus, we are in the middle of your testimony, so the law requires or dictates that you cannot discuss your testimony with anyone. You cannot discuss it with solicitors, you cannot discuss it with the defense attorney, you cannot talk to anybody about your testimony, whether that be what you have testified to thus far or what you anticipate testifying to in the future. Okay?
Yes, sir, I understand.
Anything further from the state before we break?
No, Your Honor.
Anything from the defense?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
All right, we'll be in recess until 9:30 tomorrow.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much.